Hello, for those of you who don't know, I'm April. I'm the founder of the Love and Loss Project, and I'm doing a Q&A video response today. So the question that I have had come in says, I haven't found anything yet on coping with your new partner who is not your child's father. My husband and I divorced after our daughter's death. I have an amazing new partner in my life, and I feel like there is so much of me that he doesn't understand, even though he tries. So I want to thank you for setting that into me, because I know that this is often a really extra silent topic in the community of grieving moms. And so I definitely know that when you have experienced both loss as well as divorce or a breakup or a partner who is no longer in the picture with you, this experience of isolation and loneliness can be even so much more intensified. So I want to let you know that I am here with you right now, and I'm going to help guide you through this a little bit more. So the first thing I want to offer is that I think that it can be really challenging when we enter into a new relationship after we've gone through the loss of our little one and possibly a breakup and divorce, mostly because we have so much self-doubt and so much questioning and second-guessing ourselves that really seems to be happening all the time behind the scenes of our own thoughts and our own experiences. And there really is no template, right, for how we navigate through these challenges and these experiences that we've been dragged through. And so I think a lot of us can get really caught into this idea of almost trying to dismiss or ignore or just tone down what it is that we are reacting to, what it is that we're feeling, and what is it that we're thinking that we're needing. So for instance, when we talk about this idea of I'm not really sure how to navigate this with a new partner, I want to offer you just an observation, and maybe I'm wrong. It sounds like there is a bit of self-doubt that's creeping in even right there. And this idea of I'm not sure how to do this with them. And because I think the reality is that even if that's with a partner who was the father to our lost little one, this experience is still so disorienting, and there is so much that is up for question in all of this, that there's this illusion that in many ways that because we're in a relationship with the father of our little one, that they're going to be able to really understand or able to keep up with us or able to really know and share in a deeper way what this experience has been. And while that may be definitely true for some relationships, it is certainly not the case for all relationships, as you well know. And so this really brings the onus back over to ourselves. And I think it can be really helpful to get really clear about a few different points. One, what would support look like with your current partner? So for me, and I'm also a grieving mom who is divorced and now in a new relationship with someone who is not my baby's father. And so I definitely know some of these challenges firsthand. And what this means is that this layer where we assume that people are going to get it is removed, right? But I would argue that layer exists in every relationship anyways. We kind of assume people are going to be able to understand us a little bit more. And I think that that's really just an illusion that exists in all relationships. Because at the end of the day, I strongly believe it is our own responsibility to teach other people what we need. And that is partly because of this experience that we all need something different. Even if your current partner had been dating somebody else in the past who had gone through this exact same thing, she might have gone through this in a really different way and needed a very different form of support from him. And so even if we're in a relationship with somebody who is our little one's biological father, there is still these assumptions, right, that often put us on two very different pages and create all kinds of misunderstanding and stress and conflict. So what I would encourage you to do is really just remove and allow yourself to embrace the idea, because it's both challenging and really empowering to say your current relationship does not get the benefits of that level of assumption. You are having to be the one to educate your partner each step along the way about what good support feels like for you. And so I believe that this applies to all of our relationships with friends, family, and everyone, which is basically this idea that we have to teach people. And I believe that this is a part of our role as our lost little one's mom. It is our job to continue to act like our little one's mom. And while they may not be here for us to take care of in the way that we want to, I believe very much that we are still the guardians and the protectors of their memory. And so, what is it that you want your current partner, what is it that you want your friends and family to know about how you want your little one's legacy and memory to be preserved and protected in your household, in your story? And so one of the ways that I do that is, so for example, Nora, my last little girl's anniversary birthday, is always a really sacred, important day for me. And so I organize a random act of kindness event on this day, but I also take the day off of work every single year, because to me, this day is sacred. And that's one of the ways that I signal to my partner that this day matters. This is one of these ways that I signal to my partner and to all the people around me that as a grieving mom, my experience of losing my child is never going to be just a historical fact. This is always going to be an ongoing part of who I am and my identity, and part of the unique fabric that makes me me now. And so I take full responsibility for being the one to identify my need. I have a need for this day to be acknowledged. I have a need for it to be treated as sacred. And because I do that, I was going to say not everybody, but a lot of the people in my life really also join me in acknowledging this day as sacred and important. And so my partner, for instance, will often take the day off of work as well, just to be with me during that time, because he recognizes that that's important for me. But I don't believe that he, even if he had been my father, my child's father biologically, I don't believe that he would just know to do that if I had not been the one to really set that tone and say, here's what this looks like for me. Here's the kind of support that I need. So that is our job. And I believe that this is one of the very few ways that we have available to us to still claim our role as a parent of our lost little one. And we would have to do that, whatever form of relationship it is that you're in. The other thing that I would say is that when you are a grieving mom who is now in a new relationship, or who is single or dating again, one of the things that I've heard from some of my clients is that it can get really confusing and challenging in terms of how do I interact with my ex-partner? What kind of obligations do I owe to them? What should our relationship look like? And I've seen some women get really caught up in continuing to maintain ties to an ex-partner who makes them feel like crap, right? Who every time that they talk to that person, which is sometimes, but not always, sometimes the case with our exes, if every time you talk to that person, they make you feel bad or upset or cause you more pain, that's not okay, right? This is not an acceptable form of relationship, whether that's a coworker, friend, boss, partner, ex-partner, whoever this is. If every time you talk to them, you feel exhausted, you feel stressed, you feel burnt out. But one of the things that I've heard from grieving moms is that it can be especially guilt-provoking to think about creating more distance from an ex-partner when you're the parents of a lost little baby. And I totally get that, right? And so what I would encourage you to do, I'm always a big believer in the idea of get really clear on what the role and the job description is. And so I believe that when we separate from our fathers, from the fathers of our lost little baby, I absolutely believe that we still maintain a tie with them because we are still parents to this child, even though this child is no longer here on earth with us. But I believe that we need to take a step back and look a little bit about what that interaction needs to look like. Because when I have clients who have living children and they're divorced, one of the examples that I use is I say, okay, so this is no longer your partner in the sense that you're used to experiencing in your marriage, but this is now your business partner, and that you are invested in this mutual enterprise of raising your children together. And so how I relate this to grieving parents is, yes, you still have a tie, but this is going to look really different. Because, well, I believe that we have a shared opportunity to continue to extend kindness and respect to each other as the other parent of my lost little one. What that looks like for me is that I will be a memory keeper in your life. So I will be one of the people in your world as your ex-partner who will send you a message or send you a gift or a card on the anniversary of what would have been our little girl's birthday. That's one of the things that I do with my ex-partner. The other thing that, because when we look at this idea of role, where I see a lot of women get caught is that because this person and I have such sacred and private and personal history in a way that might be hard to explain to anybody else on the planet, I owe them infinite tolerance for any bad behavior that they might have. Or I owe them my time, or I owe them the responsibility of picking up the phone every time that they contact me, or replying to text anytime that they text me, or anytime that they need to have me take care of them, because I think this is often the role that a lot of women get into in their relationships. We start to feel responsible for helping somebody else through their grief and through their experience of this. And then we end up spending a lot of our energy pouring that into places that does not necessarily benefit us and does not necessarily honor our lost little one. So a good relationship, even with an ex-partner, should be reciprocal, right? It should not just be caretaking and giving. Because when you're doing that, all that we're really doing is setting ourselves up for a whole lot of frustration and a whole lot of resentment. So here's the check-in. If every time that you talk to your partner, right, or you see their name on your phone, or you get that text message from them, do you experience a feeling of dread? Do you experience a feeling of, oh, what do they want now? Because I think that when we are grieving parents together with our ex-partners, it can feel like we owe them our time and care and attention in a way that we wouldn't necessarily continue to feel obligated to give them if they weren't our lost little one's parent. And I really want to separate these two things. Honoring your child's memory, honoring your role as your lost little one's parent does not need to be interwoven or merge with this idea of being a doormat to anybody in your life that makes you feel miserable. And I think in some ways getting really clear on some of these boundaries is going to help you when you enter into a new relationship, or if you already are a relationship. Because as we already know, exes can bring so much challenge and stress and conflict into our new relationships and present all kinds of different challenges for us to navigate. So I think it can be really helpful to think about what exactly do you need this role to look like. And so I believe there's something to be said for, I will always be respectful. I will always respect this person as being as the father of my lost little one. But that doesn't mean that you have an open door to come in and take my time, attention, and energy just because you feel like you deserve it or are entitled to it, or this is the habit that we've created for years. So I hope that helps. The other thing I want to talk about is that question of how do you cope with grief when you are single? And this is really hard, but what I want to invite you to do first and foremost is I'm going to invite you to drop the fantasy that says if we were in a relationship, we would get so much better support than we have presently. Because as you already know, that definitely is not always the case. And I would argue that it is better to be alone than to be in a relationship that brings you nothing but pain and suffering and attacks to your sense of self-worth. So, yes, while you may not get the benefits of some of those things of being in a partnership, you also don't have to deal with some of the hurts and pain of being in a bad relationship either. So I'm going to invite you to retire this idea that the grass is always greener. Because again, I believe that this comes back to dropping the fantasy and owning the reality. And the reality is you will always be your lost little one's mother. And as such, it is always your responsibility to tend to their memory, to tend to how you want their legacy to be experienced in this world. And part of that means tending to your own emotional needs and responses. I believe that this is one of the ways that we can honor our grief and honor the brief little lives of our lost beloved is by tending to our own emotional states and needs as if it matters fiercely, because this matters fiercely. It just does. So that comes back to this idea of owning your role. So I hope that's helpful for you. The other pieces that I would add that I think also apply to absolutely everyone, but especially when you are single, is really this idea of having to be brave and courageous in your conversations by letting more people know that you do want them to join with you in talking about your lost little one, and setting the tone of saying, here are the important dates coming up around my little one, and taking responsibility for being the one who plans and organizes that. I remember talking to a friend of mine, this was quite a while ago. Oh, Sasha. Give me 1 second, I'm gonna get my little barky dog here. This is Sasha. So I remember a friend saying to me, and this was quite a while ago, but she had also experienced the loss of a baby as well. Her loss had been earlier than mine. And she had said to me this one day, you know, April, I think you really get better support from people because your baby was lost farther down the road than my baby was. And while I can certainly understand, you know, where she was going with trying to make sense of why I seemed to be getting a little bit more support than she was, what she was referring to was that someone had sent me flowers on the anniversary of my daughter's loss, a mutual friend of ours. And I said to this friend, I said, the reason why those flowers came was because I had actually planned the event. I had actually sent out the invitations. I had created the Facebook posts. I had really set the tone with showing people how to tend to me and how to join and walk beside me in my experience of grief. And because I did that, it opened the door for other people to know that this day matters and to step in closer to me during this time. It sent the message to them that it cued them to take note of the fact that this is a really important day, which was very different than what my friend was doing. She didn't tell anybody. She let the day come and go, the anniversary of her loss, without telling anybody that this day was approaching or reaching out to anybody for support or participation in any way. And at the end of it, when this day had come and gone, she had this long list of everybody that she was angry at and felt hurt and jaded by because she felt that they let them down. So I'm a big believer of this idea that if I give you a really clear and direct invitation to walk beside me and you don't, then I maybe need to look at that, right? Or then we maybe need to look at this a little bit differently, or we maybe need to have a hard conversation, or maybe I need to take a good look at some of my relationships. But if I haven't given you that invitation, if I haven't been the one to set the tone and say, here's this important day for me, here's what I need, or here's what I'm experiencing, or even if this is just in terms of the course of our daily lives, it might look on the surface like I'm feeling just fine, but I'm actually not fine, right? Or here's what I'm struggling with today. If we don't actually let ourselves be seen, then I believe that we are setting our partners and our friends up for failure. So I would encourage you to think about how this relates to your current relationship if you're in one. In what ways are you setting your partner up to meet you with care and kindness and support? And in what ways are you setting them up to fail you and to feel let down by them? Because I believe that that is very much a two-way street, and we have to make sure that we are first tending to our part side of that street before we can really get angry and hurt by somebody else who isn't there for us. So this is this hard thing, right? It's this hard thing about allowing ourselves to be seen and taking full responsibility for our own needs when we're in a relationship with whoever these people are, whether they're your coworkers, friends, family, whoever that is, and releasing some of this self-doubt and some of this, because I think the other thing that gets in the way is this little bit of embarrassment that we have for even being impacted, this bit of embarrassment that we have for even having a need. So that's what I would encourage you to think about. And instead, allow yourselves to know that yes, when we are grieving, our emotions are going to be dialed up by 1,000 some days, because that is just the magnitude and reality of this enormous pain. But you still feel what you feel. You still need what you need. And this is never, ever going to be something that is just ancient history or past tense. So let go of any of that pressure to say I should just be moved on, or maybe I shouldn't be still wanting to talk about this in my relationship, or maybe this is somehow something's wrong with me that I'm even thinking about this today. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. Lots of love, and I'll see you guys next time.